Rich Paradoxes, written and published by Rich Audiobooks. Concept seems to defy basic mathematics. How can giving away lead to receiving more? How can spending less create greater wealth? Why do the quietest people often wield the most power? These questions reveal the counterintuitive truths that govern real wealth creation, paradoxes that challenge our conventional understanding of success and prosperity. Throughout history, across cultures, and especially in the realm of wealth building, certain principles have proven true that seem to contradict logic at first glance. Consider John D. Rockefeller, who began tithing his earnings from his very first paycheck as a teenage bookkeeper. These patterns aren't coincidences. They represent fundamental paradoxes that separate those who achieve lasting wealth from those who merely accumulate money temporarily. While social media influences flaunt designer logos and popular culture equates wealth with conspicuous consumption, the genuinely wealthy often live by entirely different rules that seem to contradict everything we've been taught about success. The more you give, the more you receive. The less you spend on appearances, the richer you become. These aren't feel-good platitudes, but practical principles backed by neuroscience, psychology, and countless real-world examples. This book explores these rich paradoxes that reveal why true wealth often works in ways opposite to what we expect. Understanding and embracing these counterintuitive truths can transform not just your financial reality, but your entire approach to creating lasting success and genuine prosperity. The greatest fortunes and most fulfilling lives emerge from mastering these paradoxes rather than fighting against them. Lesson 1. The more you give, the more you get. The concept seems to defy basic mathematics. How can giving away lead to receiving more? Yet this paradox has proven true throughout history, across cultures, and especially in the realm of wealth creation. The principle operates on a deeper level than simple financial transactions. It transforms the very fabric of how success and abundance flow through our lives. Consider John D. Rockefeller, who began tithing his earnings from his very first paycheck as a teenage bookkeeper. Even as his wealth grew to unprecedented levels, he maintained and increased his giving, eventually becoming as famous for his philanthropy as for his business empire. What's remarkable is that his giving didn't diminish his wealth, it seemed to accelerate it. The more he gave, the more pathways for wealth seemed to open before him. This pattern repeats itself in countless success stories. When we give generously, we activate several powerful mechanisms. First, we signal to ourselves and others that we operate from a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. This psychological shift alone transforms how we approach opportunities and challenges. People who give freely tend to think bigger, take more calculated risks, and maintain optimism even in difficult circumstances. The act of giving also creates a vast network of goodwill. When you help others without expecting immediate return, you build genuine relationships based on trust and mutual respect. These connections often yield unexpected opportunities, partnerships, and insights that prove far more valuable than the initial gift. It's like planting seeds in fertile soil. You never know exactly which ones will sprout, but the garden inevitably grows more abundant than your initial investment. Modern research in neuroscience supports this ancient wisdom. The act of giving activates pleasure centers in our brain, reducing stress and improving decision-making capabilities. Generous people tend to be better leaders, more effective negotiators, and more innovative problem solvers. They approach challenges with a collaborative mindset that often uncovers solutions that benefit all parties involved. But there's an important distinction between strategic giving and mere spending. True giving comes from a place of intentionality and value creation. It might mean investing time in mentoring others, sharing knowledge freely, or supporting causes that align with your values. The key is to give in ways that multiply impact rather than simply transfer resources. The digital age has amplified this principle exponentially. Consider content creators who share their best ideas freely online, building audiences of millions and creating opportunities they never imagined. Or software developers who contribute to open-source projects, gaining expertise and recognition that leads to lucrative careers. The act of giving has become a powerful form of leverage in the modern economy. This paradox of giving extends beyond material wealth. Those who freely share credit with their teams often receive more recognition than those who hoard it. Leaders who invest in their employees' growth often see their own influence expand. Businesses that prioritize customer value over short-term profits frequently outperform their more extractive competitors. The magic of this principle lies in its compound effect. Each act of giving creates ripples that extend far beyond the initial interaction. Over time, these ripples intersect and amplify, creating waves of opportunity that return to the giver in unexpected ways. The key is to give without calculating the return, while remaining open to receiving the abundance that naturally flows from genuine generosity. Understanding this paradox shifts our entire perspective on wealth creation. Instead of asking, "How can I get more?" we begin asking, "How can I give more value?" This simple reframe transforms our approach to business, relationships, and personal growth. It reveals that true wealth isn't about accumulation, it's about circulation, and the more freely we participate in that flow, the more abundance we experience in all areas of life. Lesson 2. Rich people spend less to look rich. The most fascinating truth about genuine wealth is that it often walks silently among us, dressed in everyday clothes and driving modest vehicles. While social media influencers flaunt designer logos and rent exotic cars for photo shoots, truly wealthy people frequently choose understated lifestyles that might surprise you. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500, 0 cents. Mark Zuckerberg is frequently photographed wearing the same style of gray t-shirt. Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, drove a 1993 Volvo for decades despite having billions to his name. These aren't exceptions. They represent a pattern among the genuinely wealthy that contradicts everything popular culture tells us about success. The phenomenon of stealth wealth isn't just about personal preference. It's a powerful wealth-building strategy. Every dollar spent on maintaining appearances is a dollar that can't be invested to generate more wealth. The truly rich understand that real wealth is built through ownership of assets that appreciate, not through the accumulation of status symbols that depreciate. They recognize that the temporary satisfaction of impressing others comes at the cost of long-term financial freedom. This principle becomes even more powerful when we consider the psychological burden of maintaining an image of wealth. Those who spend heavily to appear wealthy often find themselves trapped in a cycle of conspicuous consumption, constantly needing to upgrade their possessions to maintain their perceived status. This creates a form of financial prison, where high-income earners remain perpetually cash poor despite their substantial earnings. The wealthy who embrace modest consumption habits often find themselves with an unexpected advantage. They can move through the world without drawing attention to their financial status. This anonymity becomes a form of freedom, allowing them to make decisions based on personal values rather than external expectations. It also provides protection from those who might seek to exploit their wealth, creating a buffer of privacy that becomes increasingly valuable as net worth grows. Consider the compounding effect of choosing modest consumption over flashy displays. A luxury car might cost $100,000, 0 cents more than a reliable, modest vehicle. Invested over 20 years at a conservative 7% return, that difference alone could grow to over $400,000, 0 cents. This multiplication happens across every category of spending, from watches to wardrobes to vacation homes. The wealthy who understand this principle see every purchase through the lens of opportunity cost. Perhaps most interestingly, this approach to wealth display often signals confidence rather than insecurity. Those who are truly secure in their financial position don't need external validation of their success. They've moved beyond the need to prove their worth to others and instead focus on growing their actual worth. This security manifests as a kind of quiet confidence that, ironically, often commands more respect than any luxury good could purchase. The relationship between spending and wealth becomes even more paradoxical when we consider the role of value perception. The wealthy often become wealthy precisely because they understand value better than others. They know that price and worth aren't always correlated, and they're willing to ignore social pressure to overspend on items that don't align with their values. This discernment extends beyond personal consumption to business decisions, investment choices, and relationship management. What emerges is a portrait of wealth that stands in stark contrast to popular imagination. True wealth often manifests not in what is displayed, but in what is conserved, invested, and allowed to grow quietly over time. The next time you see someone flaunting obvious signs of wealth, remember that the truly rich person might be the one in the modest clothing driving a practical car, quietly amassing real fortune while others chase its appearance. Lesson 3. Wealth grows fastest when you're not chasing it. Brightest fortunes often emerge from the most unexpected places. While many spend their lives in desperate pursuit of wealth, those who achieve lasting financial success frequently discover it through indirect means. This paradox reveals a fundamental truth about prosperity. Wealth, like happiness, tends to flourish when we focus on creating value rather than acquiring money. Consider the story of Jan Koop, who created WhatsApp not to become a billionaire, but to solve a simple communication problem. His focus was on building something useful, not on monetization. This dedication to solving a real problem eventually led to a $19 billion 0 cents acquisition by Facebook. Similarly, Sarah Blakely didn't set out to become the youngest self-made female billionaire when she cut the feet off her pantyhose. She simply wanted to look better in her clothes and solved a problem that millions of women shared. The mechanism behind this paradox lies in our psychology and how it affects our decision-making. When we fixate on money, we tend to make shorter-term decisions, often sacrificing long-term value for quick gains. This mindset can lead to missed opportunities, rushed judgments, and a failure to see the bigger picture. In contrast, when we focus on creating value, solving problems, or pursuing our genuine interests, we make decisions that naturally align with sustainable wealth creation. This principle manifests clearly in investing. The most successful investors often speak about the importance of patience and detachment. Warren Buffett famously advised that the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. The very act of constantly checking portfolio values or trying to time the market typically leads to poorer returns than a steady, uninvolved approach. The wealth grows in the waiting, not in the watching. The paradox extends beyond business and investing into personal development. Those who pursue mastery in their field, rather than the rewards that mastery might bring, typically end up more successful. Musicians who practice for the love of music rather than fame often produce better work. Writers who write because they must, rather than for royalties, frequently create more impactful literature. This authentic dedication to craft naturally attracts opportunities and, eventually, wealth. Consider the power of compound interest, perhaps the most perfect illustration of this principle. The greatest returns come not from active manipulation, but from leaving money undisturbed to grow over time. $1 doubled every day for a month will grow to over $10 million, 0 cents. Yet most people would be tempted to interrupt this process early, sacrificing the exponential growth that comes in the later stages. This truth also reveals itself in entrepreneurship. The most successful businesses often emerge from a founder's genuine passion or expertise rather than a calculated attempt to enter a lucrative market. When entrepreneurs focus primarily on solving problems they deeply understand, they naturally build more sustainable and profitable enterprises than those who simply chase trending opportunities. The path to wealth, then, often requires a counterintuitive step back from the direct pursuit of money. It demands trust in the process of value creation and the patience to let compound effects work their magic. This doesn't mean ignoring financial realities or avoiding strategic planning. Rather, it suggests that our primary focus should be on activities that generate real value, build genuine relationships, and solve meaningful problems. The wealth follows as a natural consequence of this approach, growing fastest precisely when we're not watching it with anxious eyes. This paradox teaches us that true wealth creation often requires a shift in focus, from the money itself to the value we can create, from short-term gains to long-term growth, and from acquisition to contribution. When we embrace this perspective, we not only position ourselves for greater financial success, but also find more fulfillment in the journey. Lesson 4. Saying no creates more opportunities. The most powerful word in the wealthy person's vocabulary isn't yes, it's no. This seemingly negative response acts as a gateway to greater possibilities, though it may feel counterintuitive at first. Every time we say yes to something, we're simultaneously saying no to countless other opportunities, often without realizing it. Warren Buffett famously advised that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. This isn't about being difficult or uncooperative, it's about understanding the true economics of attention and energy. When we scatter our resources across too many commitments, we dilute our effectiveness in the areas that matter most. Consider the venture capitalist who reviews hundreds of pitches each month. By saying no to 99% of them, they maintain the capacity to say yes to that rare opportunity that aligns perfectly with their expertise and vision. This selective focus allows them to provide maximum value to their chosen investments, rather than minimal value to many. The same principle applies across all areas of life, from business decisions to personal commitments. The wealthy and successful understand that each yes carries a hidden cost. When you agree to join another board, take on another project, or attend another social event, you're not just committing your time, you're committing your mental energy, creative capacity, and emotional bandwidth. These resources, though renewable, are finite within any given period. By saying no to the good, you reserve your resources for the exceptional. Interestingly, saying no becomes more crucial as success grows. As people achieve more, their opportunities multiply exponentially. Without a strong filter and the courage to use it, they risk drowning in a sea of options. This explains why many successful people become increasingly selective with their commitments over time, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity and wisdom. The art of the strategic no extends beyond just declining offers. It involves proactively eliminating activities, relationships, and commitments that no longer serve your highest purpose. This might mean stepping down from positions you've outgrown, ending business relationships that drain resources, or abandoning projects that seem promising but now distract from more important goals. Many fear that saying no will limit their prospects or damage relationships, yet the opposite often proves true. Clear boundaries and selective engagement tend to increase respect and create stronger connections. When people know your yes means yes and your no means no, they value your commitment more highly. This clarity attracts better opportunities aligned with your true priority. The practice of saying no requires developing comfort with temporary discomfort. It means facing the fear of missing out, disappointing others, or being judged as uncooperative. But those who master this skill find it liberating. Each no becomes an investment in future possibilities, creating space for opportunities that wouldn't have emerged if our time and energy were already committed elsewhere. Steve Jobs once said that he was as proud of the things Apple didn't do as he was of the things they did do. Innovation and success often come not from doing more, but from doing less with greater focus and intensity. The space created by strategic no's becomes fertile ground for new ideas, deeper relationships, and unexpected opportunities that perfectly align with our highest goals and values. Learning to say no effectively is a skill that improves with practice. It starts with getting clear on your priorities and values, then developing the courage to protect them through careful curation of your commitments. As you master this paradox, you'll discover that fewer commitments lead to greater impact, and selective engagement opens doors to opportunities you couldn't have imagined when saying yes to everything that came your way. Lesson 5. The quietest person usually has the most power. In any room of consequence, the most powerful person is often the one speaking the least. This phenomenon plays out daily in boardrooms, negotiations, and social gatherings worldwide, yet few understand its underlying dynamics. The relationship between silence and power runs deeper than mere correlation. It's a fundamental principle of human interaction. Consider the typical business meeting. While others compete for airtime, sharing every thought and reaction, the true decision-maker observes. They absorb not just what's being said, but the subtle dynamics at play, who defers to whom, what isn't being discussed, and where the real opportunities lie. This strategic silence creates an information asymmetry that builds power. While others reveal their positions, concerns, and desires through constant speech, the quiet observer gathers intelligence without exposing their own hand. This power dynamic extends beyond formal settings. In social situations, the person commanding genuine attention isn't usually the loudest voice, but rather the one who speaks with intention and economy. Their words carry weight precisely because they're scarce. Think of figures like Warren Buffett, whose measured public statements can move markets, or the late Steve Jobs, whose carefully chosen words became cultural touchstones. Their power stems not from constant communication, but from selective, impactful expression. The quiet accumulation of power works because it leverages fundamental human psychology. We naturally assign more value to scarce resources, including words. When someone speaks infrequently, we tend to lean in and listen more carefully. We attribute deeper meaning to their statements and assume greater expertise. This perception becomes self-fulfilling as others begin deferring to their judgment and seeking their opinion, further cementing their influence. Silence also creates space for others to project their own thoughts and desires. In negotiations, the power of the pause can be transformative. While most people rush to fill uncomfortable silences, those who can sit comfortably in these moments often gain the upper hand. Their counterparts, uncomfortable with the void, may offer concessions or reveal crucial information simply to break the tension. This dynamic illustrates how restraint can be more powerful than action. The relationship between quiet and power also manifests in information control. Those who speak constantly often reveal more than they intend, weakening their position and giving others leverage over them. The quiet person, meanwhile, becomes a repository of others' confidences. People naturally share more with good listeners, creating an informal intelligence network that further enhances their power base. This accumulated knowledge becomes a form of social capital that can be strategically deployed when needed. Developing this quiet power requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of viewing silence as passive or weak, we must recognize it as an active choice, a tool for building influence and understanding. This doesn't mean never speaking, rather, it means choosing words with intention and purpose. It means listening not just to respond, but to truly understand. It means becoming comfortable with the power of presence over performance. The quiet accumulation of power also aligns with long-term wealth building. Just as compound interest works silently to grow wealth over time, quiet influence compounds through consistent, understated action rather than grand gestures. This patient approach to power mirrors the most sustainable approaches to building wealth, steady, deliberate, and often invisible to casual observers. For those seeking to build both wealth and influence, the lesson is clear. Power doesn't come from dominating conversations or constantly asserting presence. It comes from strategic silence, careful observation, and selective expression. In a world that increasingly rewards noise and constant communication, the ability to remain quietly well-known is an increasingly valuable asset. Lesson 6. Time is more valuable than money. Ask the rich. Money can be earned, saved, invested, and multiplied. But time moves in only one direction, constantly diminishing without the possibility of restoration. This fundamental truth becomes crystal clear when you study the habits and mindsets of the wealthy. While the average person obsesses over dollar amounts, the truly prosperous focus on maximizing and protecting their time with an almost religious fervor. Consider how billionaires like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates structure their days. They don't fill their calendars with endless meetings or waste hours on trivial decisions. Instead, they create vast stretches of uninterrupted time for deep thinking and strategic planning. Gates is famous for his Think Weeks, where he isolates himself from all distractions to read, reflect, and contemplate future possibilities. These periods of focused time have led to some of Microsoft's most important strategic shifts. The wealthy understand something that others often miss. Trading time for money is a losing proposition past a certain point. This explains why successful entrepreneurs often delegate tasks that others might consider simple or inexpensive to outsource. A business owner who continues to clean their own office or manage their own calendar isn't demonstrating admirable frugality. They're failing to grasp the economics of time value, when you could be using that hour to develop new business strategies or nurture important relationships. Saving a few dollars on cleaning services becomes penny-wise but pound-foolish. This perspective shift regarding time creates fascinating behavioral patterns among the wealthy. They're more likely to pay premium prices for convenience, not out of extravagance, but because they've calculated the true cost of their time. Living close to work, flying private, hiring household staff, these aren't merely luxury indulgences, but strategic decisions to buy back time. A high-performing executive who saves 2 hours of commuting time daily by living in an expensive downtown apartment may be making a better financial decision than a peer who saves money by living in a distant suburb. The relationship between time and happiness also becomes evident through this lens. Research consistently shows that time affluence, the feeling that you have enough time, correlates more strongly with life satisfaction than material wealth. The rich have learned this through experience, which is why many eventually shift their focus from accumulating more money to buying back their time. They understand that the joy of having an uncluttered calendar far exceeds the pleasure of a cluttered bank account. This wisdom extends to investment strategies as well. While amateur investors often chase quick returns through active trading, the wealthy tend to favor long-term, passive investment approaches that don't consume their daily attention. They grasp that time in the market beats timing the market, not just financially, but in terms of life quality. The mental space freed up by not constantly monitoring stock prices becomes available for more fulfilling pursuits. Perhaps most importantly, the wealthy recognize that time is the great equalizer. No amount of money can buy more than 24 hours in a day or add years to one's life. This reality often drives successful people to become increasingly protective of their time as their wealth grows. They understand that saying yes to one commitment means saying no to countless others, and they weigh these opportunity costs carefully. Their calendars become works of art in minimalism, with vast white spaces protected as fiercely as their financial assets. The ultimate irony is that this fierce protection of time often leads to greater wealth creation. When you're not constantly racing from commitment to commitment, you develop the mental clarity to see opportunities others miss. You have the space to build deeper relationships, think more creatively, and make better decisions. In this way, treating time as more valuable than money becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, creating both the wealth and the wisdom to appreciate life's truly limited resource. Lesson 7. Simplicity multiplies results. In a world obsessed with complexity, the greatest achievements often emerge from ruthless simplification. We've been conditioned to believe that sophisticated solutions require intricate systems, detailed processes, and layered approaches. Yet the most successful people and organizations consistently prove otherwise. They win through radical simplicity. Consider Apple's product line in 1997, when Steve Jobs returned as CEO. The company offered dozens of computer models, printers, and peripheral devices. Jobs' first action was to slash the product line to just 4 computers. This seemingly reductive move laid the foundation for Apple's transformation into one of the world's most valuable companies. By focusing their energy and resources on fewer products, they could make each one exceptional. This principle extends far beyond business. When Warren Buffett evaluates investments, he follows what he calls his circle of competence, only investing in businesses he can understand in simple terms. If an investment thesis requires complex explanations or elaborate financial engineering, he passes. This straightforward approach has made him one of history's most successful investors. The power of simplicity lies in its ability to create leverage. When we remove unnecessary components from any system, we reduce points of failure and amplify our impact. A simple business model can scale more easily than a complicated one. A clear message spreads faster than a nuanced argument. A straightforward product is easier to sell than one that requires extensive explanation. Yet achieving simplicity is far from simple. It requires the courage to eliminate good options in favor of great ones. It demands the wisdom to recognize what's truly essential and the discipline to discard everything else. Most people add when they should subtract, multiply when they should divide, and complicate when they should simplify. The Japanese concept of ma, the powerful negative space in art and architecture, illustrates how elimination creates impact. Just as the pause between musical notes gives rhythm its power, the space between elements often matters more than the elements themselves. In business and life, creating this space through simplification allows our most important work to resonate more deeply. Digital minimalism demonstrates this principle in action. Those who deliberately reduce their digital footprint often experience exponential gains in productivity and well-being. By eliminating the constant barrage of notifications, updates, and options, they create space for deep work and meaningful connection. Their simplified approach actually expands their capability. The multiplication effect of simplicity becomes most apparent in decision-making. When we strip away unnecessary variables and focus on core principles, we make better choices more quickly. Complex decision-making frameworks often paralyze us with analysis, while simple heuristics free us to act decisively. The wealthy frequently credit their success not to sophisticated strategies, but to consistently applying basic principles over time. This truth extends to personal finance. The most effective wealth-building strategies aren't complex tax schemes or elaborate investment products. They're fundamental practices like living below your means, investing in broad market indices, and allowing compound interest to work over time. The simplicity of these approaches makes them both powerful and accessible. As your wealth and responsibilities grow, the temptation to add complexity will increase. More options, more opportunities, and more demands will present themselves. The greatest challenge, though not the only challenge and opportunity, lies in maintaining simplicity despite these pressures. Those who master this paradox discover that less truly does create more, that subtraction leads to the greatest results. Lesson 8. boredom often precedes the biggest growth. In our hyper-connected world of endless notifications and constant stimulation, boredom has become something we actively avoid. We fill every moment with content, entertainment, and busy work, treating stillness as an enemy to be vanquished. Yet this reflexive aversion to boredom may be costing us our most valuable breakthroughs. Consider how many revolutionary ideas emerged from moments of enforced idleness. Isaac Newton developed his theory of gravity while quarantined during the Great Plague. Einstein's theory of relativity took shape during long, monotonous hours at a patent office. The Wright brothers dreamed of human flight during the quiet winter months when their bicycle shop had little business. These transformative innovations didn't arise from frenetic activity, but from the fertile soil of boredom. When our minds aren't constantly occupied with external inputs, they naturally begin to wander, make novel connections, and explore new possibilities. This default mode of thinking, what neuroscientists call the default network, is essential for creativity, problem-solving, and personal growth. It's in these seemingly empty moments that our brains process experiences, integrate new information, and generate fresh insights. The relationship between boredom and wealth creation follows a similar pattern. Many successful entrepreneurs report that their best business ideas came during periods of routine or constraint. Sarah Blakely conceived of Spanx while performing a monotonous sales job. Phil Knight's early morning runs gave him the mental space to envision Nike's future. The apparent void of boredom created room for possibility. Our modern aversion to boredom often manifests as constant portfolio checking, endless research, and reactive trading activities that typically harm long-term wealth building. The most successful investors frequently credit their returns not to hyperactive management, but to long periods of patient holding, what Warren Buffett calls lethargy bordering on sloth. The ability to sit still with investments, enduring the boredom of inaction, often yields far greater returns than constant activity. This principle extends beyond financial matters. Personal growth often accelerates during periods that feel stagnant or monotonous. The plateau in a fitness journey, the seemingly endless practice of a new skill, the quiet persistence required to build healthy habits, these boring phases are actually where lasting transformation occurs. The mind and body need these periods of apparent stillness to integrate changes and prepare for the next leap forward. Embracing boredom requires a counterintuitive shift in perspective. Instead of viewing it as dead time to be filled, we can recognize it as vital space for incubation and emergence. This might mean deliberately creating periods of reduced stimulation, regular walks without podcasts, morning coffee without phones, commutes without entertainment. These small pockets of boredom can become powerful catalysts for creativity and growth. The most valuable innovations and insights often emerge not from brainstorming sessions or focused work periods, but from the gentle percolation that occurs in the absence of constant engagement. By resisting the urge to fill every moment with activity or entertainment, we create the conditions for breakthrough thinking and exponential growth. In a world that increasingly demands our constant attention, the ability to embrace and exploit boredom may become one of the most valuable skills we can cultivate. Those who learn to harness the productive power of boredom gain a significant advantage in wealth creation and personal development. They understand that periods of apparent stagnation often mask the deep work of transformation, and that the greatest leaps forward frequently follow these seemingly foul times. The next time you feel the itch to escape boredom, consider that you might be standing on the threshold of your next big breakthrough. Lesson 9. Confidence grows with humility. True confidence emerges not from an inflated sense of self, but from a deep understanding of our own limitations and a genuine appreciation for how much we have yet to learn. This paradox plays out repeatedly in the lives of the most successful and wealthy people, who often combine unwavering self-belief with remarkable humility. Consider the case of Ray Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, who built the world's largest hedge fund while actively embracing what he calls radical humility. His approach involves actively seeking out his blind spots and weaknesses, creating systems to compensate for them, and encouraging others to point out his mistakes. This practice didn't diminish his confidence, it enhanced it. By acknowledging what he didn't know, he could build more robust strategies and make better decisions. The same pattern appears in the story of Warren Buffett, who still lives in the same modest house he bought in 1958 and readily admits when he makes investing mistakes. His humility in acknowledging his errors and limitations has actually strengthened his reputation and increased others' confidence in his abilities. This combination of humility and confidence has helped him weather market storms that destroyed many seemingly unshakable financial empires. The connection between humility and confidence operates on a psychological level. When we pretend to know everything, we create internal pressure to maintain that facade, leading to defensive behavior and resistance to learning. But when we embrace our limitations, we free ourselves to learn, grow, and truly excel in our areas of strength. This authentic self-awareness becomes the foundation for genuine confidence, not the brittle shell of arrogance that often masks insecurity. This paradox becomes particularly evident in leadership roles. Leaders who demonstrate humility by listening to others, admitting mistakes, and showing vulnerability tend to inspire more confidence than those who project an image of infallibility. Their teams trust them more, communicate more openly, and perform better. Studies have shown that humble leaders build stronger, more innovative organizations because they create environments where everyone feels safe to contribute and take risks. The wealth-building journey itself teaches this lesson repeatedly. Those who approach investing with excessive confidence often make reckless decisions, while those who maintain humble awareness of market complexity tend to make more measured, successful choices. The most successful investors are often those who can say, "I don't know," and who understand that markets can behave in unexpected ways. This humble confidence extends beyond financial decisions to all aspects of life. It manifests in the willingness to ask questions when others pretend to understand, the courage to admit mistakes quickly and learn from them, and the wisdom to recognize that every success depends on numerous factors beyond our control. This attitude attracts mentors, creates learning opportunities, and builds the kind of authentic relationships that contribute to lasting success. The practice of maintaining humility while building confidence requires regular self-reflection and honest self-assessment. It means celebrating our strengths while acknowledging our weaknesses, accepting criticism gracefully while maintaining self-belief, and remaining teachable even as we master our craft. This balance creates a sustainable form of confidence that grows stronger through challenges rather than crumbling under pressure. As wealth and success grow, the importance of this paradox becomes even more pronounced. The more we achieve, the more critical it becomes to maintain the humility that got us there. Each new level of success presents new challenges and opportunities to learn, making humility not just a virtue but a practical necessity for continued growth and achievement. True confidence, it turns out, is not about knowing everything. It's about being secure enough to embrace how much we have yet to learn. Lesson 10. The richest advice often sounds the simplest. The greatest truths about wealth creation and management often fit on a post-it note. While financial experts love to complicate matters with intricate theories and complex strategies, the most successful investors and business leaders consistently return to fundamental principles that could be explained to a child. Warren Buffett's famous advice to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful captures decades of market wisdom in a single sentence. Its simplicity belies its power. This straightforward principle has guided billions of dollars in investment decisions and created enormous wealth for those who understood and applied it. The truth is, when advice requires a PhD to comprehend, it's often masking uncertainty or ineffectiveness behind complexity. Consider the most transformative financial advice throughout history. Live below your means. Invest in what you understand. Start early, or don't put all your eggs in one basket. These principles have created more millionaires than any sophisticated trading algorithm or complex tax strategy. Yet many people dismiss these teachings precisely because they seem too obvious, too simple to be valuable. This rejection of simplicity often leads them down paths of unnecessary complexity and ultimately mediocre results. The world's most successful investors and business leaders have consistently emphasized this pattern. Charlie Munger's "take a simple idea and take it seriously" has guided Berkshire Hathaway's investment philosophy for decades. Jeff Bezos built Amazon on the simple premise that customers want lower prices and more convenience. Steve Jobs turned Apple around by dramatically simplifying its product line. These leaders understood that the most powerful ideas don't require elaborate explanations. This preference for complexity over simplicity stems from our human desire to feel special or privileged. We often believe that valuable information must be hidden, complex, or accessible only to an elite few. This mindset leads many to ignore straightforward advice while chasing the latest complicated investment scheme or business strategy. The irony is that the truly wealthy often achieve their success by mastering the basics rather than pursuing complexity. Consider the contrast between a day trader constantly watching multiple screens and analyzing complex charts versus an investor who simply buys quality companies and holds them for decades. The former appears more sophisticated, but the latter typically achieves better results. The same principle applies across all aspects of wealth building. The most effective strategies are often the least complicated. The challenge lies not in understanding these simple truths, but in having the discipline to follow them consistently. It's easy to comprehend spend less than you earn, but maintaining this practice over years requires remarkable commitment. The real sophistication comes from execution, not complexity of concept. This explains why simple advice, though easy to understand, remains powerful. It focuses our energy on implementation rather than interpretation. This paradox appears throughout history in other fields as well. The most profound scientific theories are often expressed in simple equations. The most moving pieces of art often capture complex emotions through minimal strokes. The most influential leaders often communicate in clear, straightforward terms. In each case, simplicity becomes a vehicle for profound impact rather than a limitation. The next time you encounter financial advice that seems too simple to be valuable, pause and consider whether its simplicity might actually be its strength. The most powerful truths don't need elaborate packaging. They stand on their own merit. In wealth building, as in life, the richest wisdom often comes wrapped in the simplest word. Lesson 11. Discipline brings more freedom. At first glance, discipline and freedom appear to be opposites. Discipline conjures images of rigid schedules, strict rules, and unwavering routines, while freedom suggests spontaneity, choice, and the absence of constraints. Yet this perceived contradiction masks a profound truth. True freedom emerges from the foundation of disciplined habits and choices. Consider the financially independent individual who spent years practicing strict saving and investing habits. Their early discipline of living below their means, consistently investing, and avoiding impulsive purchases eventually granted them the freedom to choose how they spend their time. Meanwhile, those who exercise no financial discipline often find themselves trapped by debt, bound to jobs they dislike, and lacking the very freedom they thought they were protecting by avoiding constraints. This paradox extends beyond finance into every aspect of life. The athlete who submits to grueling training schedules gains the freedom to perform extraordinary physical feats. The musician who dedicates countless hours to practice gains the freedom to express themselves effortlessly through their instrument. The entrepreneur who maintains rigid systems and processes in their business gains the freedom to step away while their enterprise continues to thrive. Discipline acts as a multiplier of time and energy. When we establish automated systems and habitual behaviors, we no longer waste mental energy on routine decisions. The morning routine becomes automatic, healthy eating becomes natural, and financial decisions follow predetermined rules. This automation of good choices creates space for creativity, spontaneity, and higher-level thinking, the very essence of freedom. The wealthy often attributed their success not to moments of brilliance, but to sustained discipline. Warren Buffett's fortune wasn't built on a single clever investment, but on decades of disciplined adherence to his investment principles. Steve Jobs wore the same style every day, not from lack of imagination, but to preserve his decision-making energy for more important matters. Their disciplined approaches paradoxically expanded their freedom to focus on what truly mattered. The relationship between discipline and freedom operates like compound interest. Small, consistent actions maintained through discipline accumulate over time to create exponential results. The individual who exercises discipline in learning compounds their knowledge, creating future opportunities. The person who maintains discipline in relationships builds deep connections that offer emotional freedom and support. Modern society often sells us the illusion of freedom through endless choices and instant gratification. Yet this surface-level freedom frequently leads to decision fatigue, analysis paralysis, and a scattered existence. True freedom requires the courage to impose constraints, to say no to distractions, and to commit to specific paths of action. The most liberating disciplines often feel restrictive at first. A budget might initially feel like a constraint, but it eventually creates financial freedom. A meditation practice might seem like a waste of time, but it eventually grants freedom from mental chaos. A commitment to health might mean saying no to temporary pleasures, but it ultimately provides the freedom of vitality and longevity. The path to freedom through discipline isn't about perfection, it's about progression. Each disciplined choice builds upon the last, creating a foundation for greater autonomy. The paradox reveals itself fully when we realize that discipline isn't the opposite of freedom, it's the vehicle that delivers it. Those who embrace this truth find themselves not bound by their disciplines, but liberated through them, discovering that the structures they've built don't confine them, but rather launch them toward their highest aspirations. Lesson 12. Real wealth is invisible. The most valuable things in life cannot be photographed for social media or displayed in a garage. True wealth exists in dimensions far beyond the material, in networks of relationships, in accumulated knowledge, in peace of mind, and in the ability to shape the future. While money can be counted and assets can be appraised, real wealth operates on a different frequency altogether. Consider the entrepreneur who has built deep trust with her team over decades. This invisible asset allows her company to move with unprecedented speed and adaptability because everyone inherently understands the mission and values. No amount of capital could purchase this level of alignment and dedication. It had to be earned through consistent actions and unwavering integrity over time. The same principle applies to reputation, that ethereal force that opens doors, creates opportunities, and sustains success long after any individual achievement fades from memory. Warren Buffett famously told his Berkshire Hathaway managers, "If you lose dollars for the firm, I will be understanding. If you lose reputation for the firm, I will be ruthless." He recognized that reputation, while impossible to quantify on a balance sheet, represents the foundation upon which all other forms of wealth are built. Knowledge and wisdom constitute another invisible fortune. The ability to see patterns others miss, to understand human nature deeply, to navigate complexity with clarity. These capabilities generate returns far beyond any investment portfolio. Yet they can't be inherited or purchased. They must be developed through experience, reflection, and often through failure. The wealthiest people are often those who have accumulated the most lessons, not the most assets. Health, both physical and mental, represents perhaps the most overlooked form of invisible wealth. Without whereabouts, no amount of money can provide a rich life. The ability to sleep soundly, to maintain perspective under pressure, to feel energized and optimistic, these states of being are priceless yet impossible to display. Many discover this truth too late, having sacrificed their health in pursuit of visible wealth. The wealth of time freedom is similarly invisible yet invaluable. The ability to control one's schedule, to say no to unwanted obligations, to pursue interests and relationships without constraint. This represents a form of affluence that many traditionally rich people never achieve. Time sovereignty often matters more than financial sovereignty. Personal agency, the ability to shape one's destiny rather than being buffeted by circumstances, constitutes another invisible fortune. This includes the confidence to take calculated risks, the resilience to weather setbacks, and the clarity to maintain course despite external pressures. While not showing up in any net worth calculation, these qualities enable the creation of all other forms of wealth. Even in the financial realm, the most powerful forms of wealth tend to be invisible. Consider the network of relationships that creates deal flow, the pattern recognition that enables accurate risk assessment, or the reputation that allows favorable terms. These intangible assets often generate far greater returns than visible investments. The paradox is that pursuing visible wealth often destroys invisible wealth. The executive who sacrifices family relationships for status symbols, the investor who compromises integrity for quick profits, the entrepreneur who burns bridges for short-term gains, all end up poorer in the dimensions that matter most. Real wealth requires nurturing what cannot be seen or measured. This truth points to a deeper wisdom. Focus on cultivating invisible assets, and the visible ones tend to follow naturally. Build trust, deepen knowledge, strengthen health, develop character, nurture relationships. These invisible investments compound in ways that eventually manifest in all dimensions of life. The truly wealthy understand that what matters most can never be displayed, only lived.